Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Stop, Look, and Listen. I'm your host, LaTroy Gardner. This week, we have an expert in this game that we love. We love this podcasting thing. And this gentleman, he came from the world of photography and he fell in love with podcasting, and now he's one of the foremost authorities in the field. We have Darren Saul. Welcome to the show, Darren.
Thank you very much. What a lovely intro.
Oh man,
I'm not going to say that I'm the foremost authority in the field, but I'll take that.
you got to claim it. You got to claim it.
That's cool. I'll do it. I'll take it.
Cool. All right, so Darren, just give us a little background into your journey, like before you got into podcasting.
Yeah, sure, man. So I started doing a lot of work. Well, I work in two areas. I work as a recruiter. I've been working as a corporate recruiter for many, many years. And I've also been working as a photographer. And at a certain point, things changed in terms of marketing. You know, in the old days, we used to market with cold calls, with physical letter drops, with ads in the local paper and ads in yellow pages and all this kind of stuff. And then the traditional means of marketing started to change. And I realized I've got to get on board with the new way of marketing, otherwise I'm going to be left behind. And I wasn't getting the results from marketing as I used to, or advertising really. So I thought, you know what, I just jumped into podcasting. I kind of fell into podcasting as a marketing tool and digital media and social media in general. And it just blew me away. I mean, the scale that you could reach, it was fun. You could collaborate with all these amazing people. You could learn a lot. And I thought, this is unbelievable. So as a medium, I just fell in love and I started doing more and more podcasts for both businesses. And then I thought, you know what? I love it so much. I'm so into it. I'm going to actually start teaching and start coaching people and how to execute and share my knowledge and my insights from my so many hundred episodes in my journey. So right. I thought, that's what I do, and I just love it. I just, every day love it. There's new tools and technology, and still love it talking to people to this day.
All right. So how long have you been hosting?
So I've been hosting probably about 5 years or so. So I've done close to 300 episodes in two different podcasts, and just love it. I love hosting, and every one of my episodes is with a guest. I don't really do a lot of stuff just me to the camera or me to the mic. It's always with a guest because I think it's such a rich experience.
Right. So how did it help your IT recruiting efforts in photography?
Big time. Like, number one, it allows you to extract marketing content. Right now, everybody is battling on social media channels for attention. And attention in general, even on non-social media channels, like your newsletter, like your email signature, anything that you could think of. And we all need content. So what this allows me to do, and what it allowed me to do, is start to record long-form content in video and audio form. And then once you've done that, you now have a plethora of stuff to leverage and use in your marketing. And then that really took off, and to this day, my social media posts, for example, about my podcast or my little video strip extracts or whatever, outperform anything else that I do. So people still love seeing podcast extracts. And over the years, if you do it consistently, I have seen a lot of results. Like when I talk to people, "Oh, how you going, Darren? Love your podcast. I was just listening to an episode yesterday." I said, "Oh, which one?" "This one." "Oh, cool. That was really cool." Or they just know me because I'm already there in front of them all the time because of my podcast. So that's why I love podcasting. It brings you awareness and business results, without a doubt, if you do it consistently. And because of that, or due to that, it brings you marketing content.
Right. All right. So you mentioned that you've been doing this for 5 years. I'll say I get approached at least once a month. Once people know that I host podcasts or I produce podcasts for, B2B businesses, they're asking, first off, what sort of equipment is needed
Yeah.
to get started, but then they're asking about how much work goes into putting together a podcast. So could you just share that little information for us? How do
Yeah.
you what type of equipment do you need, and how much work goes into putting a show together?
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with the equipment. So you can go as cheap or as expensive as you want. I mean, how long is a piece of string? When you're starting, I recommend people just start simple. Just grab a couple of ring lights, just to light you up from the front. You can buy them really cheap. Make sure your laptop has a camera, inbuilt camera, or just get an external Logitech or something, and then get a mic. And you don't have to spend big money on a mic like this. You can have a mic just on a lapel. You can use your AirPods. You can have a mic that just sits on your desk. You can get mics for all sorts of different prices these days as well. And start really simple. You might set your whole podcast studio up for a couple of $100, right, when you're starting. And then as you get more sophisticated and you want to do this for the long term, then you might invest in some more expensive gear, buy some better mics, start changing your setup a little bit, just play around with how things are looking. But you don't have to spend a lot of money to start off with. And if anybody is wondering, probably the most important thing is the sound. The video has to be important, the video quality, if you're using video as another medium. But the sound has to be good, because people, if they can't hear you properly, or if they don't like the sound, they'll switch off, because that's, it's such an important medium from an audio point of view. So that's probably the most important thing. But again, you don't have to spend a lot of money. But it does take a bit of time to put this whole thing together. Like, a lot of people don't realize that an episode is not just, let's just record something and we're done. Like, there's a lot of preparation that goes into it, especially if you're working with a guest. You have to, have a chat, tell the guest, and put together a bit of a framework as to what you're even talking about, spec it out a little bit. You have to promote it, pre-promote it, if you want to get some success. Then you've got to record the show, and then you've got to post-produce the show. So all this stuff takes a bit of time. And, I would generally say that for every one episode, it's about 3-4 hours of work in total. If you'd want to do all those steps. I call it my 3 P's of podcasting: preparation, production, promotion. So if you want to do all 3, well, it's a good 3-4 hours of work. And you can streamline that as best you can and systemize that using different tools like Calendly and other landing pages, scripts that you might have that you can cut and paste. So you try to streamline that as best you can. You don't want to recreate the wheel every single episode.
Right.
You just kind of tweak it and customize things. And then if you really want to start freeing up a little bit of your time after that, you can start working with freelancers like yourself. I think that's what you do. Yeah, you do a lot of, people outsource their production to you.
Right.
So you can start working with people to kind of do that, and then you can free up some time as well.
Yeah, I agree. Now, also with that, like, how much do you use AI?
Yeah, great one, man. I mean, I've really started using AI a lot now. For example, all my show notes, when I put my show notes together, when I load them up into my podcast apps, I throw them all into ChatGPT. What I'll do is I'll throw my initial framework for the episode into ChatGPT, and it'll come up with a beautiful podcast summary of what we're going to be talking about. There's lots of other great tools that will post-produce and post-create stuff. If you just throw up a video, they come up with the show notes, the captions, the timestamps, all sorts of hashtags, all sorts of things. And then the other thing that AI has been really great for is to chop up video. So there's a great product, one of the great products out there is called Opus Pro, OPUS Pro. And you can throw up your video and it will come up with 20 to 30-second trailer videos from your show in 15 minutes with captions and emojis, all done via AI. So AI has started to do a lot of great grunt work, and we can really start extracting more and more content from the long form using AI. So it's huge and definitely worth checking out. I wouldn't definitely not discredit AI for that kind of stuff.
All right. So just talk about the the multiple ways that marketing funnel when it comes to the various ways you can use an interview and create more content from it.
Awesome.
Just talk about how you utilize your podcast to create other content.
Yep. Love it. So I think about content in 5 ways. You could make them 4, but I'll come up with 5. It's video, in general, video, audio, graphic, photo, and written. And graphic and photo are kind of the same thing, but I call graphic more like cartoons and graphics versus photo, which is a photo. But it's kind of still a frozen audio, a frozen video frame. So if you run a podcast, a good podcast strategy, and this is what I recommend people do, is do it in video and in audio form. I think it's really important to do both because you don't want to leave the opportunities on the table now with video. Video is very powerful, and if you're just doing audio, you are really leaving a lot of opportunity on the table. So if you can do that, you can then extract so much content in all those 5 forms forever. There's so much you can do. So first of all, every time I do an episode, I will strip a 30-second promo trailer out of it. I'll take a little, a little signature section, and I'll
hot take.
Yeah, a little hot take. Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that. And you put that can be thrown on all your social media channels, which will then point to the main full podcast. So you'll have a blurb about your host, about your guest. You'll have a little video, 30 seconds, and then you'll say, want more? Here are the links, video and audio links. So that can be thrown on all your social media channels. That can be put into your newsletter and work very, very heavily with email marketing campaigns. That can go into your email signature. That can go, say you're doing some kind of live event. You could have some of those screening, just one after another on a TV screen, whatever. So it just gives you this content that you can use for all your different channels to create awareness. From that, you can also take photos. You can take screenshots, and you can take a photo and then put some writing, written copy underneath. You could turn that into a greatest hits. Every now and again, I might create like a greatest hits promo video for my podcast, and I'll take my last 10 or 20 episodes and mash them up together. So you can do all this stuff with the content that you're creating. So that's why I think it's so important to do it in both video and audio form, because then it gives you all these opportunities to post-produce and get creative. So don't just think about doing things, don't just do what everybody else is doing. Think about what else you could draw from other industries. Think about how Hollywood or Netflix or anyone that launches anything, how do they do things? And see if you can mirror that a little bit and play with it and make it your own. So, post-production is the key, and you get better at it the more you do it. But I then throw that all over the place, and you get eyeballs from all your different channels.
Right. All right. And I noticed that you also you definitely focus on the email marketing aspect of it, where every episode that drops, you have an email that goes out with some of the beautiful graphic art and like you said, like either an audiogram or a short promoting the video, and then links to the website with all of your content.
Absolutely. Yep. I really believe that now social media, and like up till now, a lot of people have been really working heavily on social media and digital media, which is great. Well, I should say social media channels. But it's getting to the point now where it's a little bit noisy and very competitive and very saturated. And every platform is a little different. And I still don't discredit that at all. I think it's fantastic, and I still do it. But I think it's getting to the point now where we have to start adding other things to complement that as well. To not just rely on social media channels. So I think we're kind of going back to EDM or email campaigning, but it's got to be done well. And not everybody's going to love it, but I still get 30-40% open rates, which is pretty good for my email marketing campaigns. And I might put a combination of my episodes, combination of some other information and education, some links to some other stuff that I do. And if I can try and do that at least once a week, but make it valuable, I'm allowing a lot of my messaging and my content to get to people that just might not see me on social media because it's too noisy. Mm-hmm. So you really have to add that to complement getting your message out there to your audience, because I don't think we can rely on social media alone anymore. That's what I really believe. Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned that you've never really done a podcast by yourself. You've always had someone on as a guest. Just talk about the importance of leveraging the star power of your guest and growing your audience that way.
Yeah, awesome question. I mean, I never really was one to just kind of anyway jump on the mic and just start talking to the mic and just that's it. I want to have a conversation with people. Uh-huh. But the thing that I've learned is that when you have a guest, it opens up way more doors and way more opportunity than if you don't. And the reason is your guest, number one, is bringing a whole new audience. So if you can tap into, number one, using that guest and leveraging that guest's audience, you're already expanding your reach as a podcaster and as a service provider hugely. It allows you to create more engaging content because it's not just you selling your stuff or talking to, the screen and everybody's always doing this. You're having a conversation with somebody and it's much more interesting and it's much more inviting. People are more curious. It's not about just me ramming my messages down people's throats. So having a guest is much more passive and indirect and more interesting, and also brings a new, fresh perspective. If it's just me talking for 300 episodes, people are going to get bored pretty quick.
Right.
But if I've got 300 episodes and I've got a different person on every time, that's awesome. And honestly, when I jump on, I listen to a lot of podcasts. And when I look at a podcast, I just look at who the guest is because I want to learn about what the guest is talking about. Right. If it's not an interesting episode, I say, not interested in that. I like that guest. Oh, yeah, cool. So the guest is the star power, as you say. And you don't have to go for, top 100 guests in the world. You can interview anybody. And that's where it comes down to how you prepare and how you question your guest. Your job as a host is to put your guest on a stage and extract as much great insight as you can from that guest and make them seem like they have real star power and they are the authority. So that's why I love hosting with guests, because there's all those different aspects that you cannot do without that, just doing it on your own. It's just not the same.
Right. And yeah, I like to think of it as being a point guard. Like you're setting your guests up to score, get a dunk, get an easy basket.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
I like that.
So when it comes to your preparation, because me personally, I'll have notes or like you said, a general framework of how I want the direction to go, but I don't want the interview to go in that manner, because I feel like if it's strictly scripted, to me that's the worst interview. But for the companies that I work with, they want everything lined up and by the book. So just talk about how you approach your preparation and what you deem a solid interview or conversation.
Well, exactly what you just mentioned, really. Like, I like to have, what I do is I have a little link, a landing page with a link, and when I set up a podcast episode, I'll ask my guest to fill in some information, and that also helps me because I'm getting them to do some work for me. So I'm saying, I want your logo, I want your bio, I want your photo, maybe give me a couple of lines about what you want to talk about, maybe give me a sample title for an episode, because they know their content really well. They know their messaging and their agenda more than you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just take that information and I put it into a bit of a framework, and I have it just as a set framework that I can always tweak. It's just cut and paste. And I send that back to my guest and say, all right, this is the framework. We're not going to be doing this verbatim, but just prepare generally. This is kind of what we're going to chat about. I might ask you some other questions that lead along the way. But the one thing that's important, I think, is to have a general idea as to how you're going to approach things. Because if you don't, the episode can just go off in all sorts of tangents and it becomes a train wreck. And particularly when sometimes a lot of people have not podcasted for a long time. So they get a bit nervous and they start talking really fast and they go off in tangents because they're just trying to fill space.
Mm-hmm.
And you end up talking about pizza instead of technology because people are just, I don't even know how they got onto that track.
Right.
So I think it's important to have a bit of a track or framework that you can, if people do go off, you can bring them back because you have a question that you can, okay, let's go, let's bring you back. So it's almost like it's a game of giving people a bit of a leash, but not too much. So it's a bit of a balance, like you said, like have a good framework, but nobody likes a purely scripted, verbatim, robotic episode either. That's boring.
Dr. Todd McLean provides periodontal and dental implant services in 2 convenient locations. They offer over a decade of experience treating patients, and appointments can even be scheduled in the evenings, weekends, or early mornings. Give them a call in Chapel Hill at 919-537-9774 or in Durham at 919-484-8338 or visit them online at gumsandimplants.org.
Oh, yeah. So how does it feel to be on the opposite end of the conversation? I mean, being the guest instead of the host.
Oh, I love it. I really love it. I mean, and a big shout out to Podmatch because it's allowed me to connect with some amazing podcast hosts, and I'm doing this twice a week now just because I think this is so much fun. I obviously want to build my audience, but it's nice to be on the other side and talk about what I love to talk about and not have to conduct the conversation. I leave that up to you. So that's fun. Right. I really love it, man.
Okay. Yeah, because it's like, I'll say, I think from the mental side, as far as being an interviewer, you pretty much know what questions are going to come your way. And I'm curious, do you reach the point where you're just tired of answering the same question every interview, or is it, do you just think of other ways to respond, or what's your approach?
Yeah, I agree. And this approach is really for anybody that is going on podcasts and using it as a tool to promote their service, their business, their idea, their initiative, whatever it may be. You've got your shtick, we call it. You got your shtick, you got your material in a way. You're like a stand-up comedian. You got your material.
Right.
And every time you go on another podcast, you're still going to be using the same material, but you might just tweak it a little bit because of the energy of this show, or the host might ask a question in a slightly different way, or you might just feel a bit different. It's now early morning in Sydney, so I've got a bit of more energy than if I jump on last night at 11 p.m. So, and my brain will be working in a different way. So I'll answer the same questions, but I'll always come up with a different spin on things just because I'm in a different headspace, in a different time frame. And my host brings different energy as well. So you don't end up, and then what also happens is you start getting surprised, and you surprise yourself because, you say, wow, that's really cool. You kind of go to this, more sophisticated or more higher level responses to the same things, and you start to get more developed in your answers, and you might come up with stuff that really surprises you, or also allows you to then draw on and use as a springboard for other stuff, because you say, wow, I never thought of it that way, it just came out. So it's kind of just gives you this great opportunity to play.
Yeah. So another question that I'm always asked is, do you make money from podcasting? So how do you monetize a podcast?
Very interesting. Well, yes. So I've started to monetize the podcast, and I've actually just done a webinar, which was 15 ways to monetize your podcast. And the key was being creative. There are so many different ways to monetize a podcast. You just have to think about how you can start being very creative in sharing your content and sharing your ideas and collaborating that actually has some value for people. And I'll ramble a couple of points, a couple of examples. So, for example, what I do, I got to the point now where I've turned my podcast into a marketing platform, and people come on my show to market whatever it is they're doing and get content out of it. So I charge for that because like a PR agent or any other creator, you want to come to my show, I charge for it. Unless we do like a quid pro quo. If I'm on your show, you're on my show, we might just say that's no problem, that's fine. That's like a partnership. But number one, you can charge your guests. Then you might say, great, I'll put out so much information, but I'll hold back a little bit, or I'll give people more stuff. That's paid. So if you want access to that material, you can listen to all my stuff for free. But if you sign up here, I'll give you extra stuff, or I'll give you extra episodes, or I'll give you extra resources. You might have some sponsorship. I might be wearing a cap right now that could be sponsored by whoever, Coca-Cola, and they're paying me just to allow me to wear that cap, or a T-shirt, or a mic, or a whatever. So there's sponsorships as well, and there's visual sponsorships. I might not even have to have an ad spot. It's just visually in my frame. There's little ad spots as well that you can insert into your podcast episode if you want to go down that track. You might have a silent partner as a sponsor. If you have a podcast that is about cat food, I'm just making this up, and you might say, you have a podcast about cats. You love cats. You might partner with someone that does cat food or cat products, and they might want a lot of your content because they're going to be needing content and material to talk about that's not just about what they do, about food. They want stuff in general. So you can partner with someone like that and actually do a little bit of a deal to say, I'm going to give you all my content, and I might mention you every now and again, but it's kind of like you're co-branding or co-promoting the episode as a silent partner. This episode brought to you by Whoa and Whoa. So you just there's so many things you could do. What else could you do? Again, the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that the more you do this, the more you establish yourself as a thought leader, you can start teaching. You can start coaching. You can start training. You can do keynote speeches. And people pay you for all this stuff. So there's millions of different ways that you can monetize. It's just about how you be creative, and you can start that process from the beginning. You don't have to wait till you've got 10,000 people in your audience to start monetizing a podcast, because podcasting is time consuming, and at some point we're going to have to get some money back from it.
Do you ever reach burnout?
Not really. Like, I get tired for sure, but when I do get burnt out, I'll say, all right, how can I systemize this? Like, if I'm really getting tired of doing something, I'm saying, all right, how can I outsource this? How can I make this a bit easier so I don't have to continue to do this myself? So I did this with my own production, for example. I was starting to do, like, my whole weekend became producing podcasts. And I thought, you know what? I'm done. So I started outsourcing it to some great freelancers, and I just send them all my stuff. It comes back to me all perfectly done. It's actually even better than me. They do a better job because they really know the tools. They have all the new AI stuff like Decipher and Descript and all these cool tools now that clean things up. And it sounds even better than when I do it, and it frees up my whole weekend. So when you start to get to that point, find a way just to outsource it if you can, and it doesn't have to be expensive.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking for almost 30 minutes, and you haven't even said the name of your podcast.
Yeah, cool, man. All right, if everybody wants to know, my podcast is called Playing with Perspective by Suspended Animation. Suspended Animation is my my business name, and the podcast Playing with Perspective. So you can find that on all channels, on YouTube, as well as all the audio channels, or on my website.
And tell me about it. Tell me about the show.
So my show, I call my show the variety show. A lot of people say, "Oh, what's your podcast about?" And I say it's about everything, because I get bored just talking about one thing. I don't want to just talk about one thing only every single show. It's a bit boring. So I have
Same here.
Exactly. So I have my podcast, and I talk to people about health, book launches, film, mindset, entrepreneurship, business, real estate, whatever, every topic that you could think of, hypnotherapy. I've had all sorts of interesting guests, money, habits, and it's so nice to be able to learn from all these people. And that's the other thing, if I go back to your question right at the beginning, one of the best byproducts of having a guest is you learn. Man, I've learned so much about so many things because all these specialists come on my show for half an hour and are basically breaking down their whole 10, 20 years of experience and study in half an hour show, and I'm learning. So it's amazing what you learn from having guests on your show. But yeah, so my podcast is very broad. I love to talk to anybody about anything. And as I said, it's about how I can extract value from that guest for my audience. And so I don't like to keep it too narrow. On my YouTube, you can see all my different playlists, and people might say, "Oh, I'm interested in that stuff today. I'm interested in that stuff," or "Let's look at that stuff." So people can really index it and find it really easily.
Right. All right. So where do you see the industry, the direction it's heading in? Do you like where we're heading in, where a few years ago we had companies like Spotify doling out millions of dollars for huge celebrities to host podcast, and some of them worked out and the others didn't. Now we have YouTube and, the emergence of video podcasting. Forecast the industry for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, who knows where it'll end up, but it is changing. And I think where we'll go is it's just going to be a further development, a further continuation of what we're doing right now. So it's really about, if you break it down to the psychology, it's all about streaming and on demand, really. Like podcasting is taken off because it's on demand. No, two reasons. It's on demand and it's accessible by anybody. So in the old days, not anybody could have a radio show or a video show. Now, because of the technology and in the internet, anybody can just start their own show. So there's a low barrier to entry. Anybody can just jump in. There's no gatekeepers. So that's number one. So there'll be more and more people jumping on, doing all this kind of stuff, and that's great. But the other reason that it's so powerful is because it's on demand. I can watch and listen and do things when I want to. There's no one telling me when it's going to be on and all this kind of stuff. So I think what's going to happen is it's going to continue to develop and get more sophisticated in terms of maybe the production. There's also going to be more, I think there's going to be more monetization, because I think that's the next phase. Everybody's now been doing lots of podcasts, and they're all getting to the point where, all right, now I've been podcasting for so many 100 episodes. It's taking up a lot of my time and money. How can I turn this into something? How can I make money out of this? So people are very interested in monetization. So when I had that webinar, a lot of people expressed a lot of interest in that, because that's the next phase. We've jumped on the podcast bandwagon. Now we want to start making money. And then I think the next phase as well might be a lot of live stuff. People are going to have live podcasts and live events where you'll have an audience in front of you, and you'll podcast with someone on the stage, and then you can have audience participation, and that just allows for more richer experience and richer content, helps you build your community, which again allows you to monetize. So I think it's just going to be a further sophistication of the medium in all these different ways to help build community, make money, expand the reach and expand the richness of the experience.
Yeah. And I know a few of the podcasts that I listen to, they go on tours. They go on 30 city tours as if they're, Aerosmith or Rolling Stones, hitting different cities. I can also see where it's almost like a lineup where you have 3 or 4 different podcasts, and the consumer is paying like $60-$70 to go see 4 different podcasts for like 2-3 hours. Like I could see that happening in the future as well.
Yep, I love that idea, man. That's awesome. Like, yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah,
like
you
go
get-
and see- like you go and see a comedy event with 10 comedians, and you'll see 4 episodes, four discussions, and you'll learn something. Almost like going to a conference. Yeah.
Like especially if you have a network, a team of podcasters, 4 or 5 shows. Yeah,
Love it.
you all
That's
do
a
your
really cool
shows
idea.
live and record it, build the audience. Because like with my network, we have like 7 shows right now.
Wow.
But we all have different target audiences. So I think that would be a way to bring us all together and let, say, the Giant Robot Radio's audience hear the good old boys, and then they'll end up subscribing to us and becoming fans. And those that enjoy Stop, Look, and Listen, they can hear Unemployment Line for the first time and be blown away. So yeah, I definitely think that's going to be something that happens real soon if it's not being done already.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome idea. It's almost like you have a podcast conference where you just go and listen to a day of different episodes, and you invest time and money in your learning and development because it's a business expense because it's learning. You're going to learn something.
Right.
So I think that's a really cool idea.
All right, cool. All right, so just talk about the services you provide. You say you're a coach, a strategist. You work with businesses that are afraid to jump in these deep waters of podcasting, to experiment with this new marketing strategy. Just talk about what services you have that we can utilize.
Yeah, with pleasure.
Uh-huh.
So, and I thank you for that. Thanks for the opportunity. I'll break it down really, really easily. I'm trying to give value from both sides, to hosts and to guests. So for hosts, I've got loads of different products and services. I help people. I have recorded sessions and recorded courses. I do one-on-one courses, group courses, workshops, all that kind of stuff to help hosts build up a podcast and use podcasting as a business tool, as a business revenue and a marketing tool. And for guests, I'm trying to do the same, where I can help guests get on podcasts and actually deliver on podcasts properly, learn how to deliver their message, how to articulate their story, how to prepare for the show, what to do with the episode after it's done. Because one thing about guests is that I've had so many guests come on my show, and that's it. They come on the show, they never do anything else with it. To me, that's crazy. You wasted all that opportunity. You're wasting all that leverage. So it's really about helping guests and hosts leverage podcasting as a marketing tool and a business results tool. And that's it. And I've got loads of different things. You can jump on my website. There's some paid stuff, some free stuff. And I think I've got a link that I've given to you that just is a one-stop page for everything.
All right. Where's the link?
So I'll send that to you. I'll give that to you later on. It's on my Podmatch profile, but I'll give it to you. No stress.
All right, cool. Yeah. So yeah, plug everything. Where can we find you?
Yeah. So you can find me. Just jump on my website, which is suspendedanimation.com.au. Really easy. www.suspendedanimation.com.au. Can't miss me.
Cool. All right, final question, Darren. What's something about you that people will find most surprising?
Oh, that's a good one. Nobody asks me that one anymore. Wow, I would say, all right. I'll give you a couple of things. I used to be a pharmacist. So I used to be a trained pharmacist, but I left that many, many years ago. I'm allergic to seafood.
Oh, no. Yeah, when I come to Australia, I guess we can't go out to eat then because, seafood is like my favorite.
Absolutely. Like not so much, fish, but crustaceans. And I've got 2 baby teeth.
Okay.
There you go. There's a couple of fun facts.
Nice. I love it. All right, Darren. All right, Darren. Saul. Suspended animation. Podcast host, coach, strategist, former IT recruiter, photographer, million jobs, 2 baby teeth.
I love it. That's my claim to fame.
Oh
The
yeah.
man with 2 baby teeth.
Yo, this was fun. Make sure you go to his website, suspendedanimation.podbean.com. And for Stop, Look, and Listen, I'm your host, LaTroy Gardner. See you next week. Peace and blessings.